Did you know that in 2024, a child born to a family in the top 1% is 77 times more likely to attend an elite university than a child from the bottom quintile? But what if that advantage disappeared overnight? Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where every single newborn receives exactly the same amount of wealth. No inherited mansions, no crushing debt, no family fortunes or generational poverty. A world where your economic destiny isn't predetermined by the lottery of birth. How would this radical reset reshape our societies, psychology, and the very foundations of human ambition? Would we finally create a true meritocracy, or would other forms of inequality simply take wealth's place? In this episode of Imagine If, we're going to look at the fascinating consequences of economic equality from birth. In our hypothetical world, each child receives what we might call a birth dividend, a standardized financial endowment managed in trust until adulthood. This concept actually exists in limited form today through baby bonds and universal basic capital proposals. The immediate effect would be dramatic. No child would begin life disadvantaged by their parents' financial circumstances. The intergenerational transmission of poverty, one of society's most persistent problems, would be disrupted. Children's basic needs like nutrition, education, and healthcare would be secured regardless of their family situation. Economists would have to find a new term for born with a silver spoon. Maybe born with a standard issue stainless steel spoon just doesn't have the same ring to it. But questions quickly emerge. How large should this endowment be? Who would manage it until the child reaches adulthood? Would it be dispersed as a lump sum or as periodic payments? The answers would fundamentally shape outcomes. Equal starting wealth would transform economic incentives. Parents might save less for their children's futures, knowing a baseline is guaranteed. Investment patterns would shift as wealth managers compete for a more democratized pool of capital, rather than catering to a concentrated few. Educational choices would likely change dramatically. Without financial barriers, more students might pursue their genuine interests, rather than focusing solely on potential earnings. Would we see a renaissance in the arts, humanities, and public service? Or would other social factors maintain existing career hierarchies? Entrepreneurship could flourish as more people would have the capital to take risks. Business models targeting the very wealthy might decline, while those serving broader populations would expand, potentially driving innovation in different directions than we see today. Perhaps the most profound changes would be psychological. Children growing up knowing they have the same financial foundation as everyone else, might develop different attitudes toward money, success, and social comparison. Research in behavioral economics suggests that relative position often matters more than absolute wealth for human satisfaction. Even with equal starting points, people would inevitably compare their economic outcomes to others. Would this create healthier competition based more on personal effort and talent? Or would it simply intensify feelings of personal failure for those who fall behind despite equal beginnings? The removal of financial inheritance would fundamentally alter family dynamics. Parents would pass down values, knowledge, and social connections rather than wealth. This might strengthen intergenerational bonds around non-material inheritance, though it could also create tension as parents lose a traditional method of providing for their children's futures. Equal starting wealth wouldn't eliminate all advantages. Social capital, the networks, connections, and cultural knowledge that affluent families provide would continue to benefit some children over others. Parental education levels, time availability, and cultural backgrounds would still create meaningful differences in opportunity. Regional inequalities would persist as well. A child born with the same wealth in a resource-rich area with excellent public institutions would still have advantages over one born in an underdeveloped region with weak infrastructure. Trust fund managers would suddenly find themselves with billions of identical accounts to manage. I used to handle old money. Now, I just handle new baby money. And let me tell you, these clients are much more demanding. They literally cry for everything. These persistent inequalities reveal an important truth. Wealth is just one form of inherited advantage. True equality of opportunity requires addressing multiple dimensions of inequality simultaneously. Our thought experiment reveals both the promise and limitations of financial equalization. While equal starting wealth would transform society in profoundly positive ways, it would not automatically create a perfect meritocracy. The most valuable insight might be recognizing how deeply our current economic arrangements are shaped by policy choices, rather than natural laws. We can choose to move toward more equal starting points through expanded child benefits, educational investments, and similar policies. Perhaps most importantly, this thought experiment challenges us to question whether the extreme wealth disparities present at birth in today's world are inevitable or desirable. By imagining alternatives, we open space for conversation about what kind of society we want to create, one where economic outcomes reflect meaningful contributions rather than the lottery of birth. What would you do with your birth dividend? Imagine this world. Share your biggest what if in the comments and subscribe.